On planets separated by dozens of systems, there are arguments taking place. On one planet, far, far away, in the council chambers of the great High Grand Leader, council members argue about the threat of Sol. They mention how it's been nearly 20 Earth solar rotations since their fleet had left to take back the resource-rich sector and bring the humans under their subjugation. Some of the council began to drool at the idea of ingesting another human while they were still kicking. Something about the fear, something about the adrenaline just made it tasty to them. A few even like to consume these creatures when they're as fresh as possible. Eventually, they were able to get back on topic. They mentioned how the fleet should have only taken 2.8 months, human time, to get to the Sol sector once they were assembled. After that, it would take another 81 hours to actually get to Sol 3 and make landfall. Estimated time for full subjugation after that point, 92 planetary rotations. Return time for a courier to relay any message of success would be another 2.8 months in human time. Combined, it should not have taken more than 6 months to receive some sort of communication. Yet even after the fact they have not received anything, they sit idle as more and more ships avoid the sector. Reason being is those that get too close simply go adrift. They've seen this happen once or twice and they don't know why. The worst part is the sector seems to be expanding. They can't get close, and it seems like they can send probes and then suddenly the probes will go dark for whatever reason. They have no idea why. The council is in such disarray that several councilors are beginning to strike at each other. Eventually, it gets so bad that the great High Grand Leader himself rises up higher than everyone else, flares out the hood on either side of his head, exposing the royal symbols to everyone in attendance. This is a sign for everyone to quiet down as they fear what he might do. They know he's about to decree something, but they're not sure, and as the room finally goes silent and everyone is paying attention, he speaks.
Your concerns are understood, yet it is still foolhardy to send another fleet into the system when we do not know what or who we are dealing with. If it is some sort of biological weapon, we cannot risk losing any more of our ships to the enemy. We have already lost 2 entire subjugation groups and an entire battle group without even knowing if our forces damaged the opposing forces. If it turns out that they have a weapon that is biological, we cannot risk it arriving anywhere near our home systems.
Everyone around is nodding as he continues.
As you have stated, this is the most likely of weapons used, as chemical weapons would not be effective enough to infect the entire fleet. That being said, the idea of a biological attack doesn't hold up to scrutiny either. Even a biological outbreak would leave a few of our personnel alive to report back. As neither of these seem to be the case, I ask you all from your ideas of what we could be facing. You are not getting any information from our forces sent, and our reconnaissance vessels disappear as they enter the sector. Due to our lack of information, I have not given the order to invade.
He makes sure that he punctuates this one a little bit before continuing.
2 of our strongest houses have already suffered greatly due to their rash actions. It is only arrogance and stupidity that would compel anyone to charge into an unknown kill zone. I understand that it has become a hindrance for those who conduct commerce in that area, as you must send time and resources to bypass the sector. For now, there is no other choice. We will continue to monitor the sector and work on contingency. As for your request to send the Grand High Fleet, I say no. Not until one of you can give me a perfect reason, along with a battle plan that will not cost us every single ship as it has done before.
As the great Grand High Leader lowered himself back onto his coils, he did not retreat his hood. This was a show that his words were absolute, and the council chambers only had a few light murmurs as everyone realized that he was correct. Diving in headfirst would truly be foolish. Inside a Senate room, a long, long distance away, humans gave their concerns. They didn't fight over military gain, but instead commerce. In the center of a large room where all the senators were arguing was a very large holographic image of a live system. Everything was there, complete with real time movements of ships, location, stations, and colonies. They would talk more about how they wanted full autonomy, yet still wanted the benefits of membership, as each station wanted to be on its own, yet wanted the protection and everything that went with it. Some argued that they should maintain exclusive rights to certain sectors, and others argued that resources should be shared, in some cases forcefully. And it all came down to money with these people. It always comes down to money. Off to the side, a man waited with another, waiting to speak. He was getting bored with the same old rhetoric he had heard before. On his fourth cup of coffee, he was about to just leave and just not even bother. The senators would just drag things out all day anyway, and he would have to show up again. For what? Stand here and do absolutely nothing? The other human next to him looked at him and threw back another cup of coffee and then dropped the cup in the trash. The acid from so much coffee was not helping their mood as it seemed to be boiling its way into their small intestine. After a quick trip to the latrine, they both found themselves back and with the senators still on the same subject as 30 minutes prior. The military men looked at each other and without a word moved on to the floor. They reached up and grabbed the microphone away from the representative politician who was speaking. He looked at the senator in the eyes and told him to sit down. The one in charge of the Senate racked the gavel to the ground and told them to wait. With all due respect, ma'am, if I waited for these politicians to shut the fuck up, we would be waiting here forever. Especially if you want anything done, you just leave it to a committee, just like this one. I was called here to brief you all on Operation Gothic Serpent. Now, before anything else happens and anyone else here tries to rudely interrupt me, my associate, Fleet Admiral Hart, has something to say. He motioned over to the Navy Admiral standing there, and the Colonel stepped back. The Admiral placed the chip into the reader, though before he pressed the play button to show them everything that was going to be happening on a pre-recorded briefing, he spoke a simple phrase. Operation Gothic Serpent is a go. He then hit the button and let the pre-recording start. But before they could even get 2 steps as they were about to leave, the representative they told to sit down suddenly stood up as they were trying to reach the door. You can't do this without our approval. The colonel, barely breaking stride, turned his head so they could hear him. With all due respect, Senator, I don't work for you. Back in the Columbia Grand Hall, 15 human days later, a meeting was going relatively smoothly. This is until the doors slammed open and a young snake came slithering in, screaming, Your Majesty, you need to see this. The sentry guards were chasing after him and were able to get him on the ground and hold him down. They forced the axe across the back of his neck to try and get him to stop moving. The double-sided axes they carry may be mostly ceremonial at this point, but they still can maim and kill if used right. The young snake was in a complete panic still as he kept trying to get the datapad Great High Grand Leader. The young snake is struck several times for his insolence until the leader yells over all of them, Silence! To risk his life to come here like this, bring me that datapad. Without any more questions, they simply pull the pad out of his hand while still holding down the boy. Normally, such devices are kept out of the chamber in order to keep everyone's focus on the task at hand, but this seems like special circumstances. The leader pauses and looks over everything, moving all the data around, and everyone waits for his response. And he suddenly looks, opens his eyes.
Has this been confirmed?
The boy acknowledges its authenticity. Immediately he turns,
Secretary, disseminate this information to all the houses.
Then he immediately turned to the rest of the room.
Prepare your fleets.
And he waved his hand, and with that, everyone slithered out of the room very quickly. The leader then slowly slithered down to where the boy is.
Release him.
The guards let him go, and the boy immediately got up and went into his version of present arms or a salute, which to every human would look a whole lot like a curtsy.
Normally, on any other day, what you have just done would have cost you your life. But today is a very different day. Raise your head.
He does as he is told.
Having the scales to do what you have done, we need personnel like you to captain our ships. What say you?
The boy looked extremely shocked as the realization of what the hell was going on went through his mind. It only took a moment for his mind to get back to reality and for him to calm his nerves before he responded. I am grateful to your kind words, but I am afraid I must decline as I have no knowledge of such things. The leader began to show his version of a smile before saying anything else.
That is the best answer you could have given.
He then turned to the guards.
Get this young one enrolled in our best officer schools. Should he succeed, he will be given command of a ship.
The boy was absolutely astonished. The great High Grand Leader is truly generous. They all then perform that same curtsy maneuver before turning and leaving. Inside the offices, the representatives of each house see the information that was sent to them. An entire sector right next to the Soul sector had gone completely dark in a matter of minutes. The only thing they had to go by were some very, slightly blurry images of ships that they had never seen before. Yet from what they saw, one thing was perfectly clear. These ships are warbirds.